Hello, glad to have you back. In the next video of my series, I'm going to help you create links using the HTML editor. This is just because it's going to give you a little bit more flexibility than just using the rich content editor buttons. We're just going to be using very specific snippets of code just to accomplish what we want in Canvas particularly. In my previous video, I gave you some suggestions about how to use the different elements in the rich content editor in order to format the pages. Now, that included the creation of links. But the difference is that now I'm going to be using this HTML editor and not only the rich content editor. We're going to be looking at two different kinds of links, external and internal, whether they take you to any other place aside from the page where you're working, or if they take you to a particular location inside of the same page. So this could be very useful, for example, when you are creating menus. From the rich content editor, you can create these external links very easily. For the internal links though, there's no specific tool that can help you do that in your rich content editor. So we do have to go and tweak the HTML code a little bit. This contains the text that you use to create your page, along with a bunch of instructions that tells the web browser how to render your particular page, your web page. Those set of instructions are what we call the HTML code. One thing that I'm going to suggest you is look into this function of your web browser, searching in page, find in page. I'm using Firefox. Do Control F or Command F if you have a Mac computer. You can see that now this bar here open up with the search field. I can search for tag H2. What about a subsection? Beautiful. So that's gonna help me looking up for a particular specific place where I want to go and work in my HTML. Let's see the syntax. We need two things. One is an element or a tag that we associate with an anchor. So that anchor tag is going to be A, and then we need an attribute inside of this element, which is going to be Hyperlink Reference, href. The way that we do it here is that if we want to create this particular link in our page, we go to the HTML editor, we identify the text that we want to convert into a link, and then we wrap it up inside of this anchor element. You open the anchor element A, and then you close the anchor element whatever you want that anchor to finish, to end. So the way that you do that is closing element is always using this backslash. Inside of this anchor element, we're going to find the href attribute, hyperlink reference, href equals, and inside of quotation marks, the desired URL, basically the website to which this link is going to be pointing to. And this is all we need to create this link. Let's copy this phrase from here. And then, because when we open the HTML editor, we have a lot of coding that it's going to be distracting. So let's use the finding page function of the web browser. Control F, Command F. Let's look for that phrase. We pasted that phrase in here, and we now find it that it's right in there. Okay, good. So now I know that this is where I want to start working. So remember that we selected this, and we are going to use the anchor element. We close that anchor element, and then inside of this, the hyperlink reference, and inside the quotation marks, what we're going to do is to copy paste the URL for Google Drive. Let's go back to rich content editor. Now we have it. Good. Internal links. Same idea, difference is that we are going to create a particular location inside of the same page. We identify which element we want to point to, and we give it a name by this attribute ID. This is going to be the syntax. Example, we have this title for a page, we give it a name. ID attribute equals, inside of quotation marks, the name that you want to give it. Let's call it page top. We can create now a link that points to the top of the page, which is going to take us to this particular element, which name is page top. How do we do that? We're still going to be using the A tag href attribute. The difference here is that this is not an URL. This is the name that you give it to the element inside of your page. And also very important, you should use this pound sign. Specific example, we're going to create this link, go back to top of page. We identify this portion of the text that we want to convert into a link. We wrap it into the anchor element using the href attribute, but don't forget that in this case, instead of being the URL, you're going to be using the pound sign and then the ID associated with the element that you created before. When you do that, you're going to have this link pointing to this specific location on your page. The pound sign is very important. Let's do the internal link. We're going to be using this particular text. Now we want to go directed immediately to the section using Google Drive. Now remember that because this is the title of a subsection, we have this header 3 marked down. That's going to be useful information. Now let's grab this portion of the text, because when we come to the HTML editor, we want to make our life easier. Find in page, Command F, Control F, paste that phrase in here. Now you know that we have to start working in here. Now the syntax is very similar, just a modified version. Remember, we have to open the anchor, then we have to close the anchor. Now the hyperlink reference attribute, in here we have to use the pound sign and then the ID for a specific element inside of this page. We create that one. It's up to you. So since we're referring to Google Drive, let's give it an ID that makes sense. Something easy that we can remember. Now we have to look for that section where this one is pointing to. So again, Command F, Control F. We can use the tag H3 to find that title. So this is for using OneDrive. Let's go to the one that it's using Google Drive. Now here, we can put the ID inside of here just for reasons of style of the page. I'm gonna put it a little bit above here in this paragraph, but you can actually insert it inside of this tag. Anyhow, we can create ID equals inside quotation marks. We have to use the same ID that we gave on the anchor element. So that was Google Drive. And that's why the suggestion of making it something that makes sense according to what you're working on. Now from here, go back to Rich Content Editor. We have this link here now active. If we save this page, now if we come here, we see this is using Google Drive, and then it takes us directly to that one section. Now, just to be consistent, make sure you also change the color so that consistency in the format of your pages is also very important. There we go. Now it's all done.